Hey there, my name is Julie Faith-Ann Balzer, and today I'm going to show you how to use your ScanNCut to create some absolutely lovely Valentine's Day heart magnets. These will stick to anything metal, totally perfect. So here's how we're going to get started. The first thing you're going to do is in the machine, you're going to go ahead and you're going to choose pattern. And then I'm going to go into the built-in shapes and I'm going to push the up and down buttons until I come to a heart. There it is. I'm just going to grab it. Now, the natural size that it is 3.94 inches, and I actually want mine to be a little bit smaller, but of course you can make yours whatever size you wanted it to be. I'm going to make mine about 2.5. So once I have that set, I'm going to go ahead and say set. I can see it there on my screen. So what's left is I need to go ahead and load my mat so that I can place it where I want it to be. So this is the magnet side and this is the release paper side. I'm going to put it onto my mat magnet side down, and I want to make sure to really push hard and adhere it well to the mat so it doesn't slide or move around in any way. So I'm really pushing quite hard to make sure that it's there. Once that's done, I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to take it and I'm going to go ahead and load it into the machine, making sure that it's nice and straight. I'm going to go ahead and hit the load button, and once it's loaded in, I'm just going to go ahead and choose scan, and I'm going to scan that in so I can perfectly place it. Because the release paper is white, if I want, I can hit the tool icon and I can go ahead and darken that up so I can see it a little bit better, and then I can drag my heart into some available space. I can also go ahead and choose add and test, and add a test cut to make sure that all of my settings are correct. If you do that, you want to make sure that you drag the test cut to an area that's not really being used. Then I'm going to go ahead and say OK, but before I cut, what I need to do is I need to load my deep cut blade. So I'm going to go ahead over to the blade holder, and I'm just going to lift that up with a single finger and pull my standard blade out. Now I have my deep cut blade, which is the purple one, which is already set to a 7, and I'm going to go ahead and drop that in, brother logo facing me, and close the latch. But before we can cut, we have actually one last thing that we need to get done. Under the settings, we want to make sure that our cut speed is at a 1 and the cut pressure is up at a 5. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to say cut, and now the machine will automatically stop after that test cut. So now I'm simply going to go ahead and check the test cut, and look, it came out nice and clean and it didn't cut through my mat, so that means I'm ready to go. So if we look back at the screen, I'm simply going to go ahead and press the start button. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unload the mat, and I can just pull my magnet right out. There you go. You can see my heart. It looks awesome. So now what I'm ready to do is we're going to make a quick little stencil. So I have a mat here that has some stencil material already put on it, and I'm going to go ahead and just load it into the machine. And now let's get to finding our stencil design. After I hit OK, I'm going to hit the back button. And then I'm actually going to hit add. Now, what I did is I actually have some handwriting of mine, which I scanned into the machine and turned into a cut file. And if you're interested in learning how to do this, I do have a video all about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag my handwriting onto the heart. And what I'm really looking for is size. So I'm going to go ahead into the editing functions, and I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. What I want is I want the always to be in the heart but slightly overlapping. This is a little too much overlapping, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go into the resizing, and I'm going to make this slightly smaller. And then again, I'm going to say OK, and let's zoom in, maybe even zoom in a lot, so that I can take a peek and see, because my goal is to have the A slightly overlapping but not all the way, and the tail of the S slightly overlapping. So if that all looks okay, then I'm going to say OK, OK again. But what I actually want to do before I hit OK again is I want to use the arrow tools and navigate so that I'm grabbing the heart. Do you see how the heart has a red box around it? Because what we're going to do now is we're going to delete that heart out, because all I want is the always and the test cut. So I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to hit the scan button, and what's going to happen is I'm going to scan in my stencil material. Because my stencil material is translucent, I've actually drawn a black box just around the edges of it so I can see it. And this allows me to place my test cut and to place the word always directly onto my material exactly where I want them to be. So once that's done, and I can put this anywhere on here that I want, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say OK. But now we have to change out our blade again. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm simply going to lift up the latch on the blade holder, and I'm going to remove that purple deep cut blade, and I'm going to replace it with the blue standard blade, which you can see is set to a 5, which is where I'm guessing the stencil material is going to cut. I'm going to go ahead and close that just with a single finger. Then I'm going to go ahead into the settings, and I'm going to make sure that my cut speed's at a 1 and my cut pressure's at a 5. And again, whatever stencil material you're using, you should test to make sure that your settings are correct. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to say cut, and once again, the machine should automatically stop right after the test cut. So I'm going to say start, and we're going to test cut. So I'm going to go ahead and check the test cut, and how I do that is try to sort of wiggle the cut out without really removing everything. And if I pull up the corner, you'll see, I can see that that cut came out nice and clean. I just have a square there. So I'm simply going to push that right back down. I know it's okay. So let's look back at the screen, and you can see all I need to do is press that big green start button, and we're ready to cut the stencil. So I'm going to go ahead and unload the mat, and I can release my stencil here. So I'm just pulling away the excess, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my spatula tool, and I'm simply going to bend the mat and make sure that I just gently wiggle that delicate stencil right off. There we go. And as soon as I've got it, then we are ready to start glittering. I'm working on top of a piece of deli paper. I have my magnet and I have my stencil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the magnet and I'm going to take off the release paper. And this will reveal the adhesive that's on the back of my magnet. Then I'm going to take my stencil and I'm going to go ahead and place it into that adhesive so the A and the S are just overlapping the edges as I mentioned. If you want, you can take the release paper and put it back on so that you really can push down the stencil and make sure that it's well adhered there. Once that's done, I'm going to pull it off. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my first color of glitter. And this is why I'm working on top of the deli paper, because now I can just shake it all over here without worrying too much about making a mess. Then I'm going to go ahead and gently lift it up and make sure to shake glitter all over the heart so that it's really, really covered. And I can tap off any excess glitter, making sure to rotate. I can also use a paintbrush or any soft bristled brush like that to brush away any excess glitter that might be hanging around. So that's a really easy way to make sure that you get nice clean look and that all your glitter is well adhered. So once that's done, I'll put this back in the jar, but for the sake of brevity, I'm going to go ahead and I have another piece of deli paper, a clean piece, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my heart down onto it. But what I'm going to do is, holding it with my hand, I'm going to lift off that stencil, being gentle because I certainly don't want to tear the stencil, so that I can now reuse it and make 100 of these hearts. And I'm simply going to lift it off. And now you can see I've revealed the adhesive that's under there. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my second color of glitter and I'm going to go ahead and shake it across. And same thing, I can just go ahead and I can even fold the deli paper over and kind of push to make sure that it's really mushed into there. And then I can shake it off just by tapping. Then I can go ahead and take my brush and brush it away. And what you'll see, which I think is kind of magical and amazing, is that my always is now going to be highlighted in blue. So then of course I would take this glitter, put it back into the jar. Now there's one more step before this magnet is done, which is I want to make sure that the glitter doesn't go anywhere, that it really is permanent, stays in there, it doesn't get all over my refrigerator or whatever else. So I'm simply going to take a clear sealant and I'm going to go ahead and carefully just cover the heart with the sealant. So how I like to do this is I tend to do an outline, and you can see that this is not an exact science in any way, shape, or form. You can be a little bit messy about this because you can always go back and fix anywhere on the outline. Then all I do is simply fill in the outline, and again, you don't even have to be exact here. You can sort of do a messy job of it. And then once you have some of this adhesive out, you can just use the pointy tip here. You can go ahead and kind of brush it across because this is self-leveling, and all that means is that it will level out. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do that and get this nice and covered. Now I would take my time, and once that is done, what you're going to end up with is you're going to end up with a shiny magnet that looks something like this. Now you can see I have a variation here where what I did is the always is actually all the way inside, but this glitter is not going anywhere. It's permanently on here. And now I can just go ahead and stick that to my fridge. Super easy, super fun. The ScanNCut is an awesome tool for making a gift for someone in your life for Valentine's Day or any holiday. Thanks so much for watching. For more tips, tricks, and tutorials, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to visit my blog at balzerdesigns.com. And of course, don't forget about the ScanNCut website at ScanNCut.com.